I'm Doug Hopkins. I'm the Deputy Director of Strategy at Vital Hub UK and Head of Partnerships. Vital Hub is an acquisitive company. 4 years ago we were 2 companies, we're now 14, and my job is to integrate those products into the ecosystem.
Thank you. I'm Rob Hughes, Digital Director at EIDO Healthcare. So my role is to manage the build and deployment of our digital platforms, which you've heard so much about today. I'll try and keep it short, so I'll pass over to...
Thank you, and bless you to whoever just sneezed. I'm Zoe Blackman. I'm from Induction Healthcare. So we do a lot of things around sort of patient empowerment tools, patient portal, and Attend Anywhere. Our video consultation products are the 2 main ones you may have been aware of in various circles. But ultimately, we look at a little bit beyond patient portals and what they can do, and look into how that can kind of support some of the more digital pathways stuff that we've been talking about quite a lot this afternoon.
Good afternoon, I'm Paul Johnson, I'm the CEO of Radar Healthcare. Very briefly, Radar Healthcare is a patient safety, quality, compliance platform. Essentially, our mission in life is to help reduce adverse events, to reduce risk and improve patient outcomes, and doing that through functional elements within the platform. And then I know there was a question around data and how analytics works to identify where these trends are happening, so I can cover that through the course of the conversation.
Cool. So for all the clinicians in the room, we just want something that works seamlessly with all the other systems that we have to use, and actually make our lives easier rather than difficult. And sometimes it does feel like another digital system just makes life difficult. So can you address that for your products? How can you make life easier for us as the clinicians?
That's going to be challenging for all of us, really. So we have an ecosystem of planned and unplanned care supporting the patient and the clinician from home through to ESOS and discharge. We join our products up, we integrate with most of the EPR and clinical systems to provide a single source of truth for the clinician and the patient. Where we have gaps, we partner. So we're working with Matthew and the team of how we integrate EIDO in a more comprehensive manner than just passing integration. It's more meaningful for the patient as well as the clinician to speed that process up, improve patient engagement and clinical engagement, and so you know where each patient is along that journey.
When we designed our system, we were kind of aware that there's not a one-size-fits-all for every single integration you do. Every single customer has different requirements. So the way we have built our systems is to use standards. You may have heard terms like HL7 and FHIR. We use those, but we also sort of add a layer of transformation on top of that. So in the background, we can do the technical stuff to get your patient data into our system securely, but also seamlessly in the background. So the idea is that as clinicians, you should not have to be entering patient details. You are just simply looking up a patient that has already been sent across to our system. And then something we've recently added is what we're calling the EIDO button. So it is functionality so that very simply a parent application like an EPR or a PAS can add a button that opens a specific patient in EIDO. So you search your patient in the EPR and then you click on the EIDO button, and that will open them up into our consent dashboard. You can then manage the consent for that patient. So we try and get out the way so that you can do your job a little bit easier.
And I think just in response to what you're saying about as clinicians, you just want it to work. Your patients just want it to work, probably more so in many situations. And having a portal that essentially acts as a receptacle for all the saved information, it replaces the need for stacks of paper, it gives them a little bit of reassurance along the journey, it can have all the guidance information. You can potentially have things in the future around, the informed consent that we've been talking about a lot today, but it's also the ability to kind of keep coming back to that and to utilize that, to gather information from your patients that then feeds back into your EPR in the same way that you were kind of talking to a little bit there as well. that stuff's really cool because you can start seeing how you can use this data to actually start calculating, to start feeding into the patient record to help you to make decisions that are clinically informed while also making sure that the patient is there. It centers the patient in their own care, it gives them more control and it empowers them, but it also makes space and time for the patients who aren't digital. So you can spend the time having meaningful conversations with all of your patients, but have the ability to have a bit extra time because the majority are taking care of themselves to be able to have more conversation with those patients that need more from you.
There's a term that probably gets bandied around a bit too much, which is interoperability. I think it's a given now that on digital systems like the systems we have here, you have to connect, be able to integrate with an EHR, with the meds management, whatever it might be, with the clinical systems. So that's a given, and I think we should. And if your system can't do that, then you should be looking elsewhere. For me, where we look at things in terms of that interoperability is, I always refer to it as 2 + 2 = 5. What more can you do with that integration? I'll give you a really good example, and there was a question about how do you pick up data points, and I think there was mention of using Cerner. So what does 2 + 2 = 5 mean? So from how Radar Healthcare integrates with an EHR is embedded within the EHR, and I'll use Cerner as an example because we have a demonstrable deployment where we do this. There are codes where patient harm has occurred within the patient record. Now, historically, that means that you have to come out with that system and report that there's been patient harm. Actually, within these codes, which are called IHI triggers, we can pick up those automatically and automatically surface in Radar and start responding to the incident and then start looking for trends. So for me, it's not just about connecting to these systems. You should always be asking the question, what does Radar and EIDO mean from a patient perspective and for the organisation perspective?
Okay, I'm looking for some questions from the floor to our panel. Yep, question over here. I've got a microphone, I'll come to you.
You might have guessed I'm a project manager in IT, hence why I'm asking all the IT questions. What would you say is in your roadmap for the next 5-10 years as part of your companies? What are you planning ahead? Maybe further interoperability, maybe more of a 5?
For us at Vital Hub, it's more of the same. It's integrating what we've got and making sure that those benefits are for the patient, the clinical teams and the operational teams, and make it as seamless as possible. A couple of years ago in the NHS, it was all about RPA. It's now about AI. So we're looking at actively where is best place to use AI. But we're looking for that continuity of care for the patient from home through the hospital, back out into the community, and how we manage that.
So RPA is robotic process automation,
Sorry,
in case anyone doesn't know. Rob, thank you.
So we have kind of ticked off the yes, we can integrate with the trust integration engine. Tick, we can do that. That is a process during the implementation phase that we have to go through individually with each hospital. Where we're going next is we're looking at actually implementing on a EPR level. So what can we do to work with other providers, other software providers, to take that integration step away from the trust so it comes out of that implementation phase and it's more of a switching a service on, adding a connection to an existing product that has already been integrated so we can speed up those processes for trust on the ground.
So you guys will probably be aware there's a lot of patient portal providers. There's a lot of video consultation platforms in the UK now and further afield. So as a provider of that, there is a need for us to sort of figure out what sets us apart. And I think actually interoperability, the buzzword, is one of those things. There are a lot of patient portal providers that only want to work with what they know. They only want to figure things out sort of on the go and maybe kind of have this, we know what we do because this is how we've always done it. What we want to do at Induction Healthcare, I think, is look a bit beyond as to what you can utilize from what you get from a patient portal, how to get the patient to be more centric in what it is that we're actually doing. So it's things like looking into the companies that we can partner with and not trying to reinvent the wheel. So there are a lot of things in our roadmap that obviously align to keeping in touch with everything that NHS England is developing with the NHS app, but also from how to set ourselves apart from our competitors. It's that piece. It's what do we know from our colleagues in the industry, like EIDO, who do what they do, that we can then sort of start partnering with to try and bring all of these things together. So ultimately we get to the point where, as Simon was saying earlier, it just works.
I think from a Radar Healthcare perspective, we've started to embed AI within our analytics, and that's brought immeasurable success and had a positive impact on the organisations we serve. Where we're looking to extend that is actually embedding the AI throughout the platform itself. And so it starts to engage, and Mark, who's our Chief Product Officer, is in the room. I set him a challenge some time ago, which is, and now as we're starting to realise it and moving towards it, is when you're coming on a morning, hey Radar, it's a bit like hey Siri, but hey Radar, yes you can choose your voices, but hey Radar, tell me what I need to know. If I'm a chief nurse, I want to know about my worry wards. If I'm looking in the analytics and I'm looking at patient harm, I'm looking at anything from pressure injuries to medication errors, whatever it might be, I want to be able to just communicate to the system in that way. So we start to embed AI within the activity and the commodity activity that happens. I'm not commissioned or paid by Cerner in any shape or form, but if you look what's happening with Cerner, and that will be the direction of travel, is they are now bringing out their next generation, which is the EHR, which is AI generated. So it'll be fully voice activated, all those kind of things. So I think that is the direction of travel, and we see that's where the greatest benefit lies as well.
Okay, any more questions? Okay, I mean, I think it's been a really good discussion. I think one of the things I will say is that it's the hospital trusts that have the power. Okay, so and because they're going to be paying the bills ultimately, and if they have a certain EPR provider, they can say, we want this EPR provider to work with this company to come up with something seamless. And that would be good news for you guys. Is that right? Do you want to comment on that?
That'd be significant if the EPR providers will work with us. I think they've got the core, but to get that real value out, I think they need to work with the innovating companies, such as ourselves, that can add that extra value. And I think that's the thing, that they take out the risk, they bring the core to the solution, but it's the value add that we create around that for the clinicians, the patients, and the operational staff.
So is there any other value add that you would like to comment on either or anyone? So if you just incorporate that into your answer before we finish.
From a value add point of view, I think accessibility has been mentioned a few times today. What our platform does with accessibility, but also with translations, is it takes that decision away from the clinician and from the administrative team. So they are what we call self-serve. So the patient is simply sent the link to their information article, the system detects what language their browser is in, and it loads the appropriate translation. So the clinical team don't need to know if they speak Polish or English or whatever. It's another data point we don't need to get because it is taken out to the clinician. And in terms of accessibility as well, my mother is, like many you will know of, who doesn't want to admit her sight is failing, but she needs the large print leaflet, yet she wouldn't admit to that. But the digital version, she can increase the font size herself, so she has the power to put it into high contrast mode should she wish, and change her fonts and that kind of thing. So the accessibility and the translations are pushed into the hands of the patient to decide. Is that a question related to what I said? Because your hand went up very quickly.
Thank you. I'm going to attempt not to be cynical, but every NHS IT advance comes with some negativity, and I've heard nothing but positivity, and I accept perhaps I'm just too cynical. One word negativity about where we're going.
Well, you want us to provide it, okay? I think we heard a bit of negativity about digital, the lack of the digitally enabled. Is there anything else from? Well, finish answering your bit of the question, Zoe, and then anything negative you can offer.
Yeah, you come to the right place. So I have quite a long background working in EPR and watched how it's changed over the years and all of that stuff. And I think what we tend to do, as you say, is focus on the positives without really admitting that a lot of the time the implementations of these things don't go to plan, and we end up potentially stripping out quite a lot of the stuff that we think is going to make quite a big difference, and going live with what we can. And I think one of the things that is very interesting about looking at it from a different perspective is once you have that embedded, that is hard. We all know what it's like getting a new EPR, and I know one of the talks earlier you were talking about how you're about to embark in getting your new EPR, and it's very exciting. When you get there, you need to have the other suppliers to be able to help you to make the best of that a lot of the time. And the negativity that comes potentially from those difficult go-lives, those difficult hangovers, literally and not literally, that come with that. Your suppliers from your sort of secondary and tertiary systems can actually help you to mitigate quite a lot of that. So from the point of view of a patient portal, for example, we do a lot of work with Oracle, we do a lot of work with System C, those kinds of suppliers. Where the EPR go live, sometimes the patient portal is quite soon afterwards. It's almost a bit of a salve for some of the things that you've been struggling with within a new go live and EPR. It can actually do the same thing for a very long-standing headache within the sort of digital space. You can look at some of these things as the ways to solve some of the longer-term problems that you do find in digital journeys and digital pathways throughout the hospital. So it's kind of, I guess, it comes back to this question of how do you choose the right system? You need to be very aware of all the things, good and bad, that are in your organisation to be able to find the right system to help you with moving on in your digital journey, but also dealing with some of the issues that you still have from when you started your digital journey.
Okay, so we're going to have to
sorry,
close
go
it
on for hours.
Okay, so I'm going to give Paul the last word. Thank you. She feels quite passionate about that, don't you?
From a value add perspective, I think it's focusing. One of the things we connect to as well is the outcome. What outcome do you want to deliver? We just heard some scary numbers, 526 million just in consent issues, and then I think it was 2.7 billion in general litigation cost. So if we're focusing on the numeric value, bringing that down is not a bad thing because we're going to reduce patient harm. Sometimes we forget that the context that sits behind that, this is patients have been affected. So the value add is, if you connect these systems and you choose the right systems, 100% you can move the needle. We see it in all these systems, ourselves, our customers, patient harm reduces. So that's a positive thing. Finishing on the negative, which is probably the wrong way around to do it, but I don't believe that the NHS has capacity and is equipped to make necessarily the right choice every time. You're so constrained with time, budgets, disparate departments, changing governments. It's really hard. Just leave the thing alone and let things embed and give it time to understand how these things can bring value.
Okay, I think that's a really great discussion. Thanks to our panel. Please give them a round of applause.